I'd like for us to move forward to our Goal 4, Positive School Environment, Climate, and Culture. And we're ahead of the game by a couple of minutes.
You run a tight ship here, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. Thanks for keeping us on.
Hi, and we're excited to report on Goal 4, Positive School Environment and Culture with Equity at the Core and Support for All Child. To my right, I have Tafka Bustani. To my left, I have Sarah Ott. And behind me, I have Noemi Villegas. And with us, we brought up a couple of students. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Oh, hit your green button.
Sorry, I'm Victoria Ocana from San Diego.
And I am Ben from San Diego High School. IS.
I'm from Business and Leadership.
Fantastic. All right. So as we know, equity and excellence is at the core of our work as we look to best support the whole child. This is about deepening our work around A squared, which is academics through agency. It is imperative that we establish the conditions within our schools and classrooms for our learners to be change agents of and for their own learning. Our collective why is for each and every one of our learners in our system to have intentional, purposeful, and meaningful experiences that lead to an outcome of graduation that has prepared them for both opportunity and access into college, career, and civic life. Our why comes through our schoolhouse doors each day as we pursue this outcome for excellence and equity for each and every one of our learners. How we have gone about this is always under the collective microscope of both inspection and reflection of our collective impact. And through the reflective lens, we gain insight into how to better our systems with intentionality. For example, we have been measuring and monitoring positive school climates and cultures outside of our attention to social, emotional, and the cognitive needs of our young people. As we have worked on positive behavior intervention and support systems outside of paying attention to the academics, we separate the part from the whole. And we are not achieving results and outcomes we wish to see in every classroom, particularly as it pertains to the relational trust that needs to be built between teacher and student, and knowing from a teacher the social, emotional, cognitive needs, strengths, and supports for each and every student. From a system response, if we as a district are responding to student needs and from different departments, which come with varying perspectives, then we are furthering the separation of student services and servicing students in part and not necessarily considering the whole child through an integrated approach. Much of this separation came about through stronger policies and discipline. Back in the 90s, we had zero tolerance, also with historical grading practices and the negative impact of zero, and the non-allowance for multiple opportunities through a culture of revision and redemption, and the push during the early 2000s when No Child Left Behind became a time to publicly blame and shame institutions for their lack of academic focus and poor academic results. Our systems shifted during these times because of these policies. Therefore, our systems of support and response may have separated the whole child, knowing their perspective and needs, in support of just supporting all children academically. Our data tells a story. If you look on the board here, just in a few months of school when relationships should be being formed between adults and students, where classroom cultures of collectivism of success are being shaped and where school climates of positivity are being formed, we see approximately 9,000 reported referrals in our system for aggression, defiance, and other forms of outcry for help. With our California Healthy Kids Survey data on the left, we know that only 8 out of 10 of our elementary students and 6 out of 10 secondary students feel like they have a trusted adult on their campus that they have a caring relationship with. These type of data points tell us we must do something different. We are seeing impacts of past policies and practices show up in a variety of ways throughout our schools. It is time to reimagine our collective work and humanize our teaching and learning environments for all of our young people, especially during times of misbehavior. It's how we respond during those times which are of the utmost critical to the well-being of our young people. Our call to action here is an integrated approach and a systemic approach. This year we looked across the nation for any district that was integrating and embedding social emotional learning competencies into the academic practices in the classroom. What we discovered is that everyone is doing it separately. Even in the fields of research and in the fields of the schoolhouse and classroom practices, social emotional learning is taught separately. When we look at the varying frameworks across the nation, we find over 200 different and varying terms being used to describe and define social emotional learning. The consequences are misaligned systems across the nation. What's important to note here is that social emotional learning is known by many different names and terms. It is known as non-cognitive variables. It's also known as non-academic skills. Other common terms are character education, personality traits, 21st century soft skills, behaviors, and attitudes. Each label draws from a different theoretical perspective, which are drawn from different bodies of research. Each body of research has its own related fields of discipline, further in separating this research to practice in the field. As you can see, this becomes very confusing very quickly when we're trying to navigate the research and practice in the country and looking for ways for adoption into San Diego Unified. If we take a look and moving forward, as San Diego Unified has continually done when we deepen our work, it's look at our existing frameworks and integrate new approaches into those frameworks. As we look at Marzano's framework for developing high reliable systems within each of our schools, we see leveled systems of 5 tiers. One could assume that we must first master level 1, safe, collaborative, and inclusive culture, before we move to level 2, effective teaching in every classroom, and so on. What San Diego Unified has done is look through the lens of these first levels and taught into, coached around the integrating factors within all 3 levels. You cannot extract one of the levels without impacting the other 2. The same is true when it comes to looking at social emotional learning being extracted out of academic learning. We see this take shape through curriculum and programming targeted at social emotional learning, such as second step curriculum, and that being implemented maybe during a lesson a week through an advisory program. These are separate and add-on experiences for children. These are not integrated into the first 3 tiers of becoming a highly reliable system of safe, collaborative, and inclusive cultures with effective teaching through a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So fortunately for us here at San Diego Unified, we worked strategically with our Panasonic partners and took our inquiry to Harvard's Graduate School of Education and worked with their experts in the field of social emotional learning within what they call their EASL lab, which stands for the Ecological Approach to Social Emotional Learning. These key partners at Harvard are the leading pioneers in the nation for this work. They reviewed all the frameworks across the nation and all the language and created a singular framework for how districts can support both the social emotional learning needs and the cognitive academic learning needs of our young people without separating them apart. In fact, we deeply believe that social emotional learning impacts cognitive learning and that cognitive learning impacts the social emotional learning. They are intricately connected. Consequently, we adopted and shaped a model for our district that integrates the social, emotional, and cognitive learning for the whole child and for all children. As we look to our 2019-20 school year, we'll be the first district in the nation to roll out this integrated approach. This is very exciting work for what lies ahead for San Diego Unified as we step up and into this integrated approach. As district stewards, transforming social emotional learning and academics into an integrated social emotional cognitive framework will require each of us to have cultural humility. Cultural humility is a path toward cultural safety for our young people and for our adults. Cultural humility asks us to recognize that we cannot be experts on everyone's cultural backgrounds and experiences. In fact, we will never know exactly how another person feels or experiences the world, but that our mission is to know what we don't know, to take an inquiry stance towards ourselves and others, to move towards understanding, and to build trusting relationships and learning partnerships, ultimately strengthening our relational understanding and relational trust along the way with one another. So our colleagues at Harvard had us take a look at these two challenges within our system. When we attempt to educate the whole child without educating all children, we actually recreate systems of privilege in the classroom. When we attempt to educate all children without educating the whole child, we further disempower our marginalized children within the classroom. Quite simply, whole means whole here. We have historically been treating and teaching SEL in isolation of the whole child. System-wide, across schools and within every classroom, we must look at the interrelationships between physical, social, emotional, cognitive developments of each and every child. This will have a profound impact on how our PLCs, our lesson planning, how our leaders are leading PD, how our schools are assessing the needs and determining the responses to intervention and supports, and so on. Our theory of action will be the better each adult understands social, emotional, and cognitive learning needs of our young people, then the better they can plan for them and the better they will know how to respond to them in any situation. Ultimately, this should help teachers create the conditions that help students in class decrease referral data, build relational capital with their young people around having caring adults on their campuses that they can turn to at any time. Educating all children speaks to the abilities of our teachers to focus on culturally sustaining pedagogy, where a child's whole self is able to come into an inclusive environment that supports his or her culture, beliefs, and strengths as a learner. Culturally sustaining pedagogy speaks to the ability to have diversity within the ecosystem of a classroom, and not a dominating culture that forces a child to assimilate. It is imperative for our young people to not experience this type of power and privilege and stress when they cannot be or bring their whole self to a school and to a classroom. This is again where a stance of cultural humility is imperative in the learning bridge and partnership being formed between our adults and our young people. So this is really big work ahead and very exciting work for us. To integrate these two challenges within our framework for social, emotional, cognitive learning for our young people, this work will need to be transformative. Why? Because this is really countercultural. We'll be breaking down old paradigms of thought and practice and building new paradigms of practice within the teaching and learning environment across our classrooms. If equity and excellence is at the core of our work and our classrooms are looked at as the ecosystems for life and learning to thrive, then equitable educational access requires developing classroom ecosystems that nurture the whole child and all children. I'm going to turn this over to Sarah Ott, who's going to help us understand ecosystems.
With an integrated approach, the adult responsibility is to be mindful of the daily stress that students bring with them as they enter the classroom. We can consider the classroom as an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of interactive organisms and their physical environment that interconnect and rely on each other. One area of the ecosystem that changes impacts all areas in the ecosystem. Our classroom ecosystem. When a student comes in with a stressor, and you can see the diagram, the output is evident in the student behavior, which can cause adult stress. The adults respond to that stress can either buffer or exacerbate the stress of the classroom ecosystem, impacting as a result to all the students involved. We know that stress impacts different parts of the ecosystem differently. All human beings face high levels of stress at some point in their lives. All of us experience this stress response system. But frequent experiences with toxic stress can literally shift our brain structures, making it harder to use our control center. When this occurs, we are more likely to respond to situations with heightened emotion or withdrawal altogether. This has frequent experience with toxic stress affects our brain and chemistry and can affect learning. So it affects learning to making it more difficult to remember, pay attention, self-regulate, plan, and organize our thoughts. All of this leads to our vision. Leading to support and sustain culturally responsive academic, social, and emotional learning experiences and environments that are safe, collaborative, and inclusive. Next, we have a video of the ideal state that a teacher talks about how she's able to do this within her classroom. She's a teacher at the School of Creative and Performing Arts, and she will highlight these practices that she's been doing.
I was at their graduation yesterday. They had 186 students in the sun graduating, but things seem to be going very nicely. So I'm interested in hearing this, seeing this video. Do you want to skip forward and we can come back when they get it up?
Sure. So we have a teacher video and then a student from her class talking about the experiences from the things that she's been doing. Sure. So the next part is with Noemi. How we're going to do this.
So we get to the question of how we are going to be there. And if we want this ideal state, Bruce, you narrated it perfectly. Thank you for that. And so in your folder, you have some of the printouts and some of the process that we're going to walk you through. You have skills for learning and life. You also have the leading to support and sustain handout. And at the end of that, you have a report from a nation at risk to a nation of hope, to a nation at hope. So the Aspen Institute was one of our guiding documents, along with the work that we did with Dr. Jones in Harvard, just to give you some background on those two things. Okay. So 2019-2020 implementation. So how do we lead to support and sustain culturally responsive academic, social, and emotional learning in every child, in every classroom and for every child? That's a big question. So in this question, we have to think, we have to hold the voices of our students and our educators. That's why we wanted to guide the conversation through the videos. But we also have amazing students here that I think can attest to what we want to do together. As we learn about this process, we have to ask ourselves the following questions. How do we lead to support and sustain these practices in our classrooms and within our schools? How do we highlight, honor, and integrate the culture, assets, strengths of our students in their educational experiences? And how do we ensure that our classrooms are reflective of the academic skills, social skills, emotional learning for every child and every adult within our system? So it's not only about children, it's about adults as well. Asking these questions brings us to our work, which Bruce briefly mentioned. In the following slides, I will be sharing with you our approach to this integration of social, emotional, and academic outcomes. So if we look at the next page, those are the two handouts that you have in your hands if you want to begin referring to those. But with Dr. Jones and our theory of action, we developed a process that we think may be helpful as we begin this conversation. And to give you some context, this is work that has not been done in any district that we are aware of. This is new work that we're trying to do in working with academic and social emotional skills district-wide as a system. It typically happens in pockets. So as we continue our work together, we have embarked in a journey of discovery to reassess our current system and ensure that our work on positive school climate and instruction reflects alignment and consistency. Previous to this presentation, we have been presenting to you some of the student services programs that we provide for our students in our district in positive school climate. We wanted to step it up also and show you what we're looking to do for the integration of both student services and academic outcomes within the academic instructional core and the social emotional competencies that our students need to be successful learners. So in our theory of action, we believe that when our children and young people and adults feel safe, have a sense of belonging, and feel included, they develop a specific set of skills that will support them in exercising agency, choice, voice, and therefore they will be able to succeed in school and in life. Every day, our educators have numerous opportunities to explore and nurture the assets of our students. We have talented and committed educators every day that strive to foster these skills in students. As a system, we realize that a pathway, a framework, needs to be driving the process of this integration. And we have to put those tools in the hands of our educators so that this commitment and this love that we all have for our students is palpable through a system and an aligned framework. So the skills for learning and life, that's what we're calling this graphic, and you have it in front of you. We believe that these skills will move us closer to teaching the skills for learning and life we want our students to have and adults to have. To learn about, to process together, to grapple with, and to be able to do. With these skills, we wish to find alignment in the language we use to teach social, emotional, and cognitive skills in every classroom for every teacher. So if you look at your graphic, we have a chart there that shows the cognitive skills, emotional skills, social interpersonal skills, and those skills are also guided by attitudes, beliefs, and mindsets, character, values, citizenship. All of that is included within this wheel that says learning and development happen over time across all areas in life in safe, relationship-based, and equitable learning settings. This is research that has come out nationwide from all of the big people in social, emotional, cognitive work. And they've put together this Aspen report, and what we did, we extracted the relevancy for our district and created this framework. So in the following slide, this one that is showing now, we want to continue to reimagine the experiences of our students in our schools. For Victoria, for Ben, for all of our students. In doing so, we have incredible opportunities to align a process in which our adults will know our children and youth well enough to understand the student lived experience. Thinking about the social and interpersonal skills, the cognitive skills that include the ability to focus, pay attention, set goals, emotional skills, including the ability to recognize emotions, understand their emotions and the emotions of others, learning how to cope with frustrations, character and values, to demonstrate integrity, compassion, diligence, grit, many of the other skills that we have been discussing for a long time now in the field of education. We hope that with these skills, we can continue to provide opportunities for students where they have affirming relationships, because we know that learning is social. And when you facilitate a learning in a place that is safe, where students feel valued, they feel connected to people, your brain reacts in a positive way to that. So we want to create those experiences for our students as we as adults understand the students' world. So the how gets us to the next graphic. And this is what Sarah meant when we were thinking about leading and to support and sustain culturally responsive academic, social, emotional experiences. So how do we get there? This chart explains some of the dimensions we believe to be important as we move forward. As I mentioned before, within a safe, collaborative, and inclusive culture, we are able to create systems in which adults and students have opportunities to engage with each other in impactful ways. Through our work with Dr. Jones, we assess the model we believe is inclusive of the indicators that will support our next steps. So typically, we've paid attention, if I go to the next graphic, we paid attention to the approaches to teaching and learning. So that's the top layer of that graphic. When we think about targeted supports, responsive activities, lessons, content, what we're going to teach, predictable routines, inclusive norms, things that the classroom needs to be set up for learning to happen. What we learn with our colleagues at Harvard is that we also have to think about, in the first layer, how do we work with the adults through that process? What are the tenets or the elements that we need to have within our system with adults so that adults can experience these skills and these opportunities and they can then facilitate it to students? So how do we create high quality relationships? What are the indicators of high quality relationships? What are the indicators for critical self-awareness and social ecological approaches? So this process really is an invitation to see what we can do together in collaboration with adults, where we continue to create high quality relationships with students. Defining and clarifying, being very explicit about the skills that we're trying to teach within a lesson and within the classrooms. Our colleague Tabga, she will be providing us more detail of some of the processes that we have created thus far to begin this work in 2019 and 2020. And I'm going to pass this over to you.
Thank you, Noemi. Good afternoon, trustees. We will now move from theory to practice as we begin to mobilize learning systems and structures with a focus on academics, social, and emotional learning. We are grounding our work based on the three components of our framework. They are high-quality relationships, critical self-awareness, and socio-ecological approach. Our overarching inquiry, which encompasses our professional learning for 2019-2020, is how do we lead our classrooms, schools, and district to support and sustain culturally responsive academic, social, and emotional learning experiences. We know that we've had previous success when we've designed our professional learning around our 3 learning cycles. So we intend to replicate that this year. And we've designed 3 learning cycles for our adults and our students to engage in. Learning cycle number 1, How do we foster high-quality relationships for children, youth, and adults so that they feel safe, wanted, and successful? By engaging in this learning cycle, we will focus on building high-quality relationships for adults and students in service of academic, social, and emotional success. Learning cycle 2. How do we cultivate individual and collective critical self-awareness that enables us to challenge inequities and promote well-being? Through this learning cycle, we will focus on examining our internal beliefs so we can be equipped to interrupt the barriers that stand in the way of equitable outcomes for all students. By focusing on learning cycle 3, how do we recognize, incorporate, and validate lived experiences of children, youth, adults, and communities in order to build a culture of empowerment and inclusiveness? We will ensure that we are humanizing our classrooms, as Bruce mentioned before, and humanizing our schools so that every single member in the learning community who crosses the thresholds of each classroom is respected for who they are and the rich experiences they bring. We know that we must maintain an unwavering commitment on our focus of ensuring a positive school culture with equity at the core in support of children and, as Noemi mentioned, adults as well. With this spirit in mind, all supports within our system will be poised to ensure that our work at schools will be aligned. Area superintendent walkthroughs, principal learning, teacher learning, coaching learning will all be concentrated to focus on the social, academic, and emotional success of our students. This will be an orchestrated effort on all levels, and it is through this alignment and collective focus that we anticipate positive student outcomes. We have a belief, an unwavering belief, that professional learning must translate to practices in the classroom if we are going to move the dial on student academic, social, and emotional success. Prior to our collaboration with the Harvard team, we asked ourselves, what do classroom practices look like where students feel safe, successful, and wanted? What are the concrete, observable behaviors that we should expect to see that promote equity, access, and success? We wanted to get concrete, and we wanted to ground ourselves in specific strategies and behaviors. So we leaned in and immersed ourselves in the work of John Hattie, Zaretta Hammond, many of you are familiar with these authors, and Yvette Jackson. We've grounded ourselves in where it matters the most, and that is in the classroom. As a result of this research, we developed a safe, collaborative, and inclusive classrooms tool to guide our observations in the classroom, gauge our current reality, and shape next steps for teacher practice. And that's the image on your left. Immediately after our Harvard visit and experience, we started to refine our roadmap. Our team strategically aligned our tool with the approaches identified by the Harvard team. As a result of this alignment, we refined our roadmap, which still includes the rich research from Hammond, Hattie, and Jackson, in a more refined approach as a result of our work with our Harvard researchers. Our revised resource, Leading to Support and Sustain Culturally Responsive Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning Experiences guide, will serve as an instrumental tool as we sit next to our children and notice and name the specific teaching practices that result in students' academic, social, and emotional success. This tool will also afford us the rich opportunity to know what to teach next, to know how to coach a teacher next, and to take them to their next level of learning if we don't see evidence in the classroom. Zaretta Hammond, author of Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, writes, classroom structures and processes need to tend to the emotional well-being of everyone rather than just covering the day's lesson plan. We believe our roadmap will bring this quote to life across all of our classrooms every day for every learner in our system. In our effort to gauge and evaluate the impact of our focus and supports, we will be aligning critical elements of our system to monitor and obtain data on school climate, student experiences, and classroom practices that ensure students are feeling safe, successful, and wanted. We are exploring research-based formative assessments to provide us meaningful and relevant data, not just data at the end of the year, but ongoing, timely feedback on how students are experiencing social, emotional, and academic success. In addition, classroom walkthroughs, principal walkthroughs, daily classroom observations will provide all stakeholders with rich data on the progress of our goal. It is through the collection and the analysis of data from our schools and classrooms we are able to successfully shift, refine, and adjust our supports on our journey towards moving all students into the sphere of success. Another layer of support is the system, and another layer of gauging our collective progress toward our vision of academics and socially emotional learning is through our ongoing partnership with our Harvard team. We will continue to lean in on the experts in the field and researchers at Harvard to inform our practice, shape our learning, and deepen our understanding on how to mobilize an entire system toward a culture where each and every child is succeeding academically, socially, and emotionally in the classroom, in life, and beyond. We maintain a steadfast belief that the answers to our equity work always come to us in the classroom. In the classroom is where we truly understand the learning experience of the students we serve. In the classroom is where we find our inspiration, our passion, and our motivation. And in the classroom is where we find promising practices. Trustee McQuarrie and Trustee Barrera brought up a fabulous point here. Where in our system do we see these promising practices, and how do we grow that to ensure that we are building the internal strengths of our team to grow practices within and across our system? We are aware that we do not have every classroom and every student in the sphere of success. However, we do have promising practices in San Diego Unified, worthy of celebrating. Instructional support officers have been visiting schools this year to shine a spotlight on what teachers are doing and leaders are doing to create classrooms that promote academic, social, and emotional success. It is happening, and it's our obligation to lift that, highlight it, and learn from it. We've been invited by Spotlight Schools this year to witness classroom practices and leadership moves that promote, nurture, and cultivate a sense of belonging for everyone. In our effort to make these practices public for the benefit of our learning, we have developed a website titled Safe, Wanted, and Successful. That's the website there. This website will serve as a professional learning platform for all principals and teachers to access immediately, to observe practices, to hear leadership voice, student voice, and teacher voice on how they're building these cultures that are promoting success for all. Last week, we had a wonderful opportunity to visit Doyle Elementary. After our classroom visit, Principal Kimberly Moore shared how she intentionally builds a school and classroom culture where all learners and adults are valued, respected, and honored for who they are and what they bring to the community. And I'm hoping that the video is able to. So this is Kimberly Moore, Doyle Elementary. Okay. Go ahead. Instruction. Instructional support officers will continue with the practice of observing Spotlight schools in 2019-2020, not only to gauge the progress of our support on students, but also to shine a spotlight on practices that are having a profound impact on the children we serve. As our superintendent so eloquently states, what we pay attention to grows. It is our hope that by paying attention to what is working through an appreciative lens, that we will continue to build classroom cultures where all students are successful, where all learners are valued for their unique brilliance. Lev Vygotsky writes, "Children grow into the intellectual life around them. The intellectual life of the classroom is where our work has and will continue to live in our relentless commitment towards students' academic, social, and emotional success."
The next slide. Okay, so the goal is if we do these things, then all classrooms in every school will provide all students with a culturally responsive academic, social, and emotional learning experiences where we can buffer stressors that come to life, where we can provide our adults with the tools that they need, where we can measure our progress, and we can become more concrete about what we're teaching to our young people and with our young people. So today we have the honor to have today here with us, let me pronounce their names correctly. We have Victoria Okana from San Diego High School, and we also have Ben Nisumba, and we're gonna have Victoria tell us more about her voice, what she has experienced, and some of the things that we wish to see in our students. So we wanted to bring and highlight these amazing scholars here.
Thank you. First of all, I'm Victoria Kana, and I had lived my whole life in a shelter, which it makes hard for me at school, emotional, and for education to concentrate in everything else. But I've been having all this support from the school board, for my counselors and everything. But I'm easy learning English, so that was more harder for me from school, which made me more shy at the beginning. I didn't want to talk either, so that was completely hard. And it's hard to talk to an adult, to your teachers. Sometimes you will find in a classroom teachers, because for me, I will be in the stress most of the time because I didn't have anyone to talk to. Because living in a shelter is you just have a place to stay, but you don't have anyone to talk to or like a mother support or anything like that. So having counselors, having teachers, and having people like that being there for me, it made me possible to just graduate. I mean, I just graduated yesterday. So yeah, thank you. And I'm attending to San Francisco State now. Yeah, I'm gonna start mechanical engineer. But I think this is incredible what is happening, and you know what I mean. Being able to some teachers and adults, being like gonna get tied to them to see how to help us as a students, because it's not just teaching the student. How are you gonna teach me or talk to me about something if you don't know how to get to me? Because everybody has a different experience, and for me, it's hard. Other people don't know how to communicate with others. Some people are shy. Other people just open and willing to say what they have to say to other people. And I was that shy people. I was that person that would always be in the corner and not wanted to talk to any adults about anything that was happening to me, because it was embarrassed and you were scared, and at the same time that they won't listen to you, and because of the experience you have passing through. But just when you find the right person and you have the right teachers, that makes a huge big difference in your life, and it makes you growing in yourself and thinking other people and saying like, you know what I mean, like coming back to your school and saying like, wow, thanks to you, I get to work, I get to do all this to support. And I was feeling actually my second semester for math, And that was because I didn't have the opportunity to have a computer, which I get it from the school, and that's what I make me, like having people and asking for help and getting that help. It's just so great, like you don't feel alone anymore. You feel like you have the world with you and people are working with you, and that's what makes family and this so much great. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Yes, my turn. First, I would just want to say thank you for having me here. I just want to start off by saying the system that you guys are working together to incorporate to San Diego Unified School District is very, very amazing. And I was, you know what I mean, all these years I've been thinking like, if something would just a miracle were to happen, something like this, it'll be awesome. And it's gonna happen, and I'm amazed, and I'm just very happy. So to start off with me is, I want to talk about a little bit of where I came from. I came from Tanzania, East Africa, and I had a tough life there. So I just want to talk about it a little portion. If you guys want to know more about it deeply into details, I have a book. I'm going to publish a book next year. So if you guys want to come through and just get it. Yeah, I'm going to publish a book next year. So I'll be talking about my life in America, British, and Tanzania. So, my experience with school, really, man, I did not like teachers. I did not want to see them. I did not want to learn because during the Burundian during the Burundian Civil War, which ended in 2005, I think it was June. Yeah, I was pretty young, and you know what I mean. I was going to school at the time, pretty young child, and all the teachers would do is that imagine a teacher seeing their own family, the whole family being just killed in front of their faces, and then they take that on and they grow. And then they teach students, and they take all that force on the students. Think about that. And so I had this one particular teacher, which was a female, and man, she really, I don't want to go in deep into that, but like she changed the way I saw education. She really changed the way I saw education. I saw going to school, I just did not want to be there because it was like hell, really. Like there's punishments, harsh punishments. And that really developed the fear of going to school and really talking to teachers. So when I moved here, fast forward when I moved here, you know what I mean? I did not want to be in a classroom. I would usually ditch, leave school all the time. Back in Tanzania, I would leave school. You know what I mean? I would just walk straight out to the class, like in front of the teacher. But when I came here, it was a different story. Yes, I had all that. I was traumatized by the punishments that were performed on me. So I was really scared of female teachers. In particular, I was really scared of female teachers. Male teachers, all right, a little bit. But like, you know what I mean? I was really scared of teachers in general. I did not want to, talk to them. I was just like really not focused. And plus, I did not know how to speak English at the time. I spoke 3 different languages. I speak 2. I spoke French, but I don't speak French no more. I replaced that with English. But other than that, going to school, it was really hard for me. It was like stressful. I just did not want to be there. And plus other social, how children are, they pick on that one student that is really weird. And I was that one student who's really weird, who don't even know how to speak English. It took me 3 years to know how to speak English, to know how to write and read. I'm still working on myself, you know what I mean? But other than that, it just took a long time for me to know how to speak English, and I still struggle with it a little bit here and there, but that's my story about school. And I just want to hit on how can I say this? I just want to talk about what I'm doing right now with this district, what I'm doing. So I'm working on 2 projects with the district right now. I'm working on a fitness expo, with the district, and I'm working on a music festival, which we really help students make friends, which will really help students really come and show what they worked on for many years or for a whole year, you know. And my thing is, I really like unity. You know, I really like coming together to accomplish something huge. And with these two projects, really, if they succeed, and I know they will have faith that they will, and intuition that they will succeed, I think this will bring and improve many generations to come in the district. So I want to talk about how if you guys really incorporate the system to younger children, this will actually make better people for tomorrow. It will make better people for tomorrow. And I'm actually doing something like that overseas. I want to talk about my little organization called POA. And I'm working with the Burundian government. And this organization really works on the infrastructure of Africa, really like in those parts, East Africa. And so we're working on an educational system. We're trying to change up the schools, you know, rebuild schools and all that, you know what I mean? And we're setting up irrigation systems and power lines right now. So, and it's, you know, it's been growing, 1,200 members as if right now, so it keeps growing. And really, I just want to say thank you for really listening to us and really focusing on how to improve the next generation, because we're not going to be here for long. We're just passing by. You know what I'm saying? We're just passing by. We're not going to be here for a long time. So it's best to deliver everything that within us. I believe, I have this philosophy about life that we have a gift within us. Every single person, even the person that you think that has nothing or is not going to go anywhere in life, they have something, they're carrying something. And it's our job, it's our job to really bring out that gift and deliver it, you know? And in my language, they say, and that means that, you know, starting young, you know, you have to really get close and really, you know, help that seed to grow and help that gift to come out. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, the richest place on earth is not America. It's not Britain. It's not Africa. It's not Dubai, but it's the cemetery. Why the richest place is on earth is the cemetery is because a lot of gifts, a lot of great men and great women lie within the cemetery. I just want to leave you off to that. Thank you for listening.
And thank
Appreciate
you.
it. I know I'm going
Thank
everywhere.
you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
What is your name again? Sorry.
Ben.
Ben. Oh, you got it.
How
So
do you
in
finish your
closing, we
presentation?
think about success in our schools should not be defined by just test scores or a process for academics, but also by the ability to think for ourselves, work with others, and contribute in many meaningful ways, just like Ben and Victoria have shown us today. So thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation, and you may remain seated there. We have a couple of speakers, I understand.
Yes, Moira Albritton and Mary Ann Hawk.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mary Ann Hawk, and I'm chair of the GATE District Advisory Committee. And you can think of me and our committee as your official but unpaid GATE consultant and LCAP advisors. And we have comments to submit to the LCAP from the perspective of GATE, which we'll submit to you later. But right now, I just wanted to talk about the fact that there's going to be a lot of discussion today about all students and the importance of reaching and teaching and thinking and incorporating the experiences of all students. And I just want to be here today to remind you that all includes gifted students, so please don't forget them. Not, in terms of serving underperforming students, not all GATE students are successful high achievers, even though that's what people think. Some may be struggling and may be underperforming, and 5% of GATE identified students also have an IEP, and they're known as twice exceptional or 2E students. They may even belong to another underrepresented group, so they may even be 3E. For example, they may be gifted, they may be in special education, and they may also be low income. Not all not all students who are twice exceptional have been even formally assessed, either for the special education or for the gifted program, because their conditions tend to mask one another, and it's sometimes really confusing to understand what's going on with these kids. So their complex and interacting special needs are likely not being met. I want to remind you today to keep in mind, as we're talking about all these different student groups, that the gifted also belong to multiple student groups, because gifted is a cross-cutting issue, and I'd like to call them the gifted plus. So I brought my homemade, because we're unpaid, we have to make our own. I just want to remind you that at this end of the spectrum, when you're talking about all students, these are the cluster students, these are the seminar students. And if you don't pay attention to these guys and you kind of remove them from your thinking and your LCAP, your graph looks a bit weird. Something's really missing. So these are the gifted students I represent. They are the gifted plus, ELL students, low income students, Latinx, Black, LGBTQs, special education, foster youth. Those are all the students, and they say hello, and they say don't forget about me. Do I have a second to make a comment about the math from earlier while I'm here? My time's up. Okay, I'll save the comment. We do have a math working group, and we really would like to be finding out more about what's going on with the changes in the math curriculum, because it really affects a lot of gifted students who are very good at math. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi again. 4.1.A.3 was a big thing for the CAC regarding disproportionate suspension and expulsion. I have not gotten that data. I hope you've gotten that data. Safety plans, big, huge problem. Need to be rehearsed, drilled before you have students actually on campus, and then again throughout the year, possibly as part of a professional learning community. You need to ensure that they are workable, practical, and understood. Custodial services, I mean, I'm really here in Reelsville. I'm not quite at Harvard. I'm just like on the ground. Custodial situations in a lot of our schools have declined. Vaping from those of us that have high schoolers, vaping in the bathroom is a huge problem. And I know maybe that's not LCAP, but I think it's LCAP. I also wanted to draw your attention to youth and staff protection. This has come up a few times. We are woefully behind the power curve. Too many students are in one-to-one situations without the minimum protections in place, such as too deep leadership, documented persons who are responsible for supporting activities of daily living. We have unsupervised settings, and I respectfully ask that this year we come up with a policy procedure, especially for students with disabilities, for whom their agency is zero. Somebody decides where they go, somebody decides when their diaper is changed or when they are taken to the bathroom. They are often not verbal, and it's not okay for us just to continue to let both staff and students be in this undifferentiated situation. What else did people want me to say? We have a lot of families that are concerned about, in a situation such as an active shooter situation, we have students who cannot follow directions, who do not understand to be quiet, and there's concern.
Thank you. Mr. Barrera.
Well, I just want to thank the superintendent and thank the staff who made this presentation, and obviously thank Victoria and Ben. I feel like right now the work that you're describing, this presentation today, is an historic moment in our district, and really, as people have talked about in what education means. So, and again, I especially want to thank Victoria and Ben, because you're going to be here long after the rest of us are not around or not contributing. And it is important, I think, for you to think about what you're part of creating right now. This is the best of what public education can be. Your presentation was fantastic, by the way, because you took a big idea, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but you took a big idea and you then described in taking that into practice exactly what I've asked you to do, which is to focus on what we know has worked over the last several years. And what we know has worked is the learning cycles. And so you've taken that process of the learning cycles and you've applied it to really fundamentally transforming what teaching is and what education is, because what you're describing is not continuing to separate these notions of academic achievement and becoming a good person, I think is the way that that Ben described it. It's you can't do one without the other, which is, I think, the insight that you're describing here. But the students that are in our public education system have to have access to that part of their education which allows them to become the best person that they can be. And you're focusing in on the need for those quality relationships, which I think Victoria, you were very clear about. Focusing in on learning who you are and bringing that out. Ben, what you said about that every person and certainly every student comes with unique gifts, and when we talk about gifted students, you can talk about your entire chart, because every student in this district, as I'm sure you agree with, is gifted. And Ben, you were so eloquent in describing that. And then, allowing students to be able to recognize how all of their life experiences allow them to make unique contributions to the world. And in order to make unique contributions, you have to get really skilled at math and literacy and science and social science and art and music and all the other things that we traditionally think of as academic skills. Have to do it all. And I think that when I think about the leadership of the superintendent, of Cindy Martin, I think the really critical insight that Cindy always brings to the table is we've had a system that has been built around the notion of putting all of these different different ideas into silos and separating kids, pulling English learners out of their classroom, pulling students with special needs out of their classroom. The historic approach to social emotional learning is go have the kid talk to a counselor. So what I think Cindy is really doing here, and now bringing it to this level, is it's all part of what it means to educate a young person, which means we have to build the capacity of all of our educators to be able to work with students on all of these different levels. And that if we do that, then we see the gifts that you're showing us come out. in all of our students. So I don't want us to miss this moment, what we're describing, because it really is something that is, we're talking about this journey to define our Vision 2030, what we want our school system, to look like over the next decade. Well, this is at the heart of it, and you guys are creating something that's really special. And I just thank you for that. And it's an honor, actually, to be here and listen to the work that you're taking our district on, and hopefully that'll have impact on other education systems. Thank you.
Dr. Evans.
Thank you. Great presentation. I always appreciate when you show the surveys that adults feel one way and students feel another, and we can't discount what the students say. I think in terms of social emotional learning, I want to talk about that and about individual teachers. Just like with special ed, English language learners, we can't have enough ELSTs, we can't have enough of anything, and particularly with counselors, we can't have counselors who are, enough counselors who are going to adequately address all the social and emotional needs of our students, which brings us back to every teacher has to be able to work with the social emotional needs, just like they have to work with English language learners, just like they have to work with students with special needs in their classrooms. And so there's, as we said before, there's this very artificial academic versus non-academic argument. And I know one administrator that was here some years ago talked about she would go into a classroom in high school, and her key thing was, are the students engaged? You can see that right away. So I was observing here, like when Bruce started talking, and mainly looking at board members, and everybody was listening and following and interested in what he's saying. But that didn't compare in any level to the level of attention when Victoria and Ben were speaking. No offense, because it was very good. But this is what social emotional learning is about. That we're engaged and we're really listening. And I understand too the dilemma a classroom teacher faces. We got to cover all this material. So all of you came here. We got to get all this material to the board in a certain number of hours. And how are we going to do all of that? And so, and in the process, we can sort of overlook what is the key thing that really that happens in terms of the learning. And then in terms of the individual teacher, obviously can't do everything. There are medical needs and nutritional needs and social service needs, and we do have some supports for that. But again, as Rich was saying, we can't operate in silos. Like we're going to have this special time to teach about character. Even with music, I mean, music and math can be very much integrated to increase learning. So to me, the key is how do we make sure that the individual teacher is really able to do this and on board with it, and the principal and the other instructional leaders when they go in the classroom to really be able to teach how we work on these two levels of this is the academic material and these are the psychological issues that are going on in the classroom atmosphere as we're teaching. And I still think that one of the key things is in terms of teachers getting feedback, and there's all kinds of things about, evaluations by parents, by students, by various people, but obviously a teacher could be given guidance on his or her own to give this survey to your students, and you don't have to share it with anybody. Just find out what is getting through to them and not getting through to them. We're not talking about some sort of popularity contest. I'm just making you feel good, but I feel good about myself because I am succeeding, and this teacher is helping me. Because ultimately, it's great for a student to say that was a great teacher, but beyond that, we want them to be able to say, I'm a really good student, and I'm learning, and this teacher has helped me to do it. And so I guess my concern is, these are all great and wonderful ideas. I just want to know that in classrooms across the district, that the teachers are being given all the tools and the understanding to really realize how much impact this has. And I think the best way to do that is experientially. They have to participate in some sort of, not just another sort of rote professional development. These are the 10 things that you need to do, just like what happened right here when Ben and Victoria were speaking. Thank you.
Scalability is the key. Either one of you want to speak? Mr. Beiser?
Yeah, just real quick. I want to thank Ben and Victoria for speaking today. Victoria, I too understand some of the struggles that you went through. When I was in middle school and high school, we were homeless, living in a tent. There was a period of time where we lived in a homeless shelter, which was an upgrade because they had water, showers, and things like that. But I have to commend you because it took me until I was in my 40s before I could tell anybody about that trial and tribulation. So the amount of courage that you have to come forward at this stage in your life is something phenomenal. And you, young lady, are going to definitely make a difference. There was a quote earlier today that spoke to me. Maybe it speaks to you. Tough times never last, but tough people always do. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McCrory.
Well, the presentation was very impressive, very deep, a lot said with great implications. And I think as it was opened, I think Bruce said that this is the core of what we're about, which is academics through agency. And in order to make that happen, we need to look at the environment and at and does our system have the environment create the climate where deep and meaningful relationships can be developed, expressed, so that our students then benefit from that synergy of having community, staff, schools, and all of our stakeholders working together to awaken the genius, as we say, of every child. I wanted to comment briefly on what statement that Ben made. It said he took him 3 years to learn to speak and read English. And I say congratulations. 3 years is an incredible piece of work. And as you also said that you're continuing to learn, well, I am also continuing to learn. And as we continue to do that, I think what we get out of a system that has mastered our challenge of creating successful learners is that we're teaching the art of learning, the appreciation of learning, and that we learn how to learn. It's not so much the stuff that we are putting in front of students, but it's more about the manner in which we approach our students, and it's creating the love of learning, and I think this is the core of what we're about. What I saw in the number of items that were presented is only one I'll elaborate on, and that was the chart that we had with our surveys. I think as I look back on the surveys of our students and our parents and our staff, we saw discrepancies. But I think in this survey here, we saw a tight correlation, a close correlation between the feeling of our parents and our staff in reference to how they sensed that they were being respected, that there was a relationship there that was
Thank you.
that they had a caring relationships, and I think that was really, and I think that was an important distinction. Where there was the gap was in terms of the students at the elementary, secondary, and the largest discrepancy was at the secondary students. So I know we want to create that environment where there's that caring relationship across the board, so that we are in more congruence between our staff, younger students, older students, and our parents. It seems like we're working in that direction. The other comment was this about the nation at hope, and the subtitle before that is From a Nation at Risk to a Nation at Hope. And for those of us who looked at the research, it was the nation at risk that determined that your outcome was more dependent upon where you lived as opposed to the education you received. And that was a depressing outcome for all of us that have been working to bring about the promise of education and to make your zip code not being your predictor of your success. And I think what we're doing here in this particular work with Harvard is going to be an incredible piece of work. I'm glad we're taking it on. It doesn't surprise me that we're the first school district in the country to do it, because we've done first of a number of things. That's a great piece of work. I look forward to working with you on it and looking forward to seeing the outcome. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're already 15 minutes over right now. I would just like to say to you all, thank you for coming here and sharing with us. It took a lot of courage, and I just want to give you a round of applause for your courage. And I know we're going to be hearing from you in the future. I just want to also just say that, my comment is always scalability. How fast can we get it out there? Can we move it so that it's not just in theory, but to move it so that it's working for all of our children? And with that, I'm sorry, Mr. Beiser, you'll catch us on the next comment.
Victoria said she got an F in 11th grade math because she didn't have access to a computer.
Right, we heard it. We heard that. Thank you, we heard that. Let's move forward to Goal 2, access to broad and challenging curriculum, new English learner course literacy advancement. Thank you.